Welcome everybody to episode 7 of the Experience.This.Travel show. Today we're really happy to be joined by Hannah Pearson from Pear, Andersen, CC from Global Ticks, and Baidi from Go City. We're going to be talking about all things APAC, and I think we're going to try to cover as much as we can in a short period of time. So really excited about jumping in. But first, I just want to say, why don't we just do a short intro as well to my co-host. I'm first of all Lori Timney, Insightful International. Christian
with Magpie, based in San Francisco.
And Bruce Rizard, one of the co-founders of Arrival, based in Boulder, Colorado.
The home of lots of snow right now, probably. Baidi, do you want to give a quick intro?
Hi guys, my name is Baidi Lee. I head up the Go City's APAC commercial team based in Singapore. For the folks who don't know about Go City, we are the world's largest multi-attraction city sightseeing pass companies. So,
awesome. And CC.
Hi, I'm CC. Everybody just call me CC. I think it's easy. I founded Global Ticks, which is a REST tech and a distribution platform, predominantly in Asia.
And Hannah.
Hey, I'm Hannah. I'm director of Pear Andersen. We are a sales repping and market intelligence firm. So for the last 3 years, we've been tracking the impact of COVID-19 on the Southeast Asian tourism industry.
Doing a really good job of it too.
Thanks, Lori.
So you have all been, I'm assuming, traveling all around APAC and as soon as you were able to. So I guess the last year or so. So what are some of your initial thoughts? I'd be interested to know, Baidi, I know you just went to Japan. And can you tell us a little bit about, what you're seeing there and how, how is business?
yeah, definitely. I just got back from Japan last Sunday, primarily for business. And I was quite surprised by the amount of visitors in not only a major city, obviously Tokyo, as well as some of the smaller cities like Nagoya and Osaka. And obviously the market, I feel like the market is back, maybe not 100% to the 2019 level, but it's probably half back, I would say. And considering Japan just reopened, they just dropped a lot of complicated, paperwork you will have to do pre-arrival, and they have also dropped a lot of, testing requirements. So it makes it a lot more easier to even arrive in the Narita or Haneda airport. It was the whole experience from the time you get off the plane to immigration to the custom, it was actually a lot more smooth comparing with I think the time when I traveled to Europe. I think when Europe just opened, it was such a disaster. Went to Paris and London Heathrow Airport. It was a nightmare. So I was quite impressed, but that was not surprised because it's Japan. Everything is very organized. So that was a good experience. And I actually went to some of the attractions, whether it's Universal Studios Japan or some of the historical sites like Osaka Castle. All those are quite packed. And considering that just right after the, some of the national holidays in Japan. And there's a good mix of domestic and, travelers coming from more the regional travelers like Northern Asia, from, Korea, from China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, as well as some of the long hauls like the Americans and Australians. So I have high confidence Japan will come back as quickly as it could. But on the downside, I think the attractions are really, really struggling because they've been dealing, it was an issue before, even before the COVID time, they strive for the high level of, kind of hospitality, and the service level is very high. And now through pandemic, I think it's same with every market, right? When you reopen, people just struggle to find, anyone who can brace to like come back to the industry, and it's like whether it's in the front line or in the back office, they just struggle to find anyone. So I think like as much there's an enthusiasm, it's very difficult for them to immediately open up to a lot of like international distribution. Like they're still trying to like limit their capacity. Like almost all attractions I've visited have certain capacity restriction in place. So I think it's gonna be a little while for them to gain full capacity and be able to work with all the international trade partners to welcome back the international visitors. But it's good to see they come back quickly though.
Good. Yeah, that's great. Cece, I was just thinking of you when Baidi was talking about capacity limitations. So you must be dealing with a lot of that right now in your business. Time ticketing, capacity limitations. How are you helping attractions manage all this?
Well, I think post-COVID, I think even in APAC itself have shifted predominantly open data tickets. That means you can go anytime, to a lot of data tickets currently. So a lot of attractions during COVID, with the rules implementation, they have to implement limitations or time slots. And most of the merchants are not taking it away. I mean, if you look at the Mandai Zoo, they introduced it, they didn't take it away. You look at Universal Studio, they introduced it, they didn't take away. So I think it is pretty common now to have capacity management in most of the attractions, actually. So in a way, it's good for us because it means people are taking up technology. So it really COVID really expedite the technology adoption. But I like to jump in from what I've been traveling a lot in Asia as well, right? I mean, just in December, I went to Bangkok itself. I went to Bali. I think the recovery is not even. Right? Japan inbound is huge, but I went to Bangkok during Christmas. It was still very quiet. I could get a 5-star hotel for less than $100 US during Christmas period. So the recovery is not even in Asia. I think Asia is very big itself, APAC, and I think places like Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia is still lagging behind.
Is that just China though, Cece? Because I think China was more than 50% of inbound into Thailand, isn't it? So is the gap mainly just China, or is it everyone?
No.
China was only about 20% into Thailand, not 50%.
Oh, is it Bangkok was 50? I thought there was a number there, but maybe I'm completely wrong. Okay.
Not sure about that it was that high. But look, I mean, if you look at Thailand, their full year last year, they only had 11.9 million travelers. 2019 they had 39.9. So they're just about 25%. And I think it's quite easy to not realize just how late a full reopening really happened in Southeast Asia and then East Asia as well. So it was mainly, Thailand was one of the forerunners, yes, but if you're looking at Southeast Asia in general, most countries didn't really start to reopen until March last year. And even then it needed to be tested, and then they maybe dropped it towards May. So you can say perhaps from May onwards, they were really a lot more open. So we know it, whereas like Baidi was saying, Japan, they only dropped this testing in October. So we are miles behind our US and European counterparts. And things are recovering, like Baidi said, they are looking up. But I just had a quick check about inbound numbers to Japan before we came on, and they only have until October, right? But for October into Japan, they only had 500,000 compared to 2.5 million. I suspect that December was probably a lot higher. They haven't released that yet. But it's such a long way to build back.
It's gonna be a long way to go,
without China. Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Kristen. No, go ahead.
So I get passionate about this space. Do you think that's going to have long-term impact? If you go to London now, you wouldn't know COVID had ever happened. I think probably New York's the same thing. San Francisco's a bit different, but a lot of Europe and North America look like they did before, because we were shut down for maybe a year, maybe 18 months, some places. But is this going to be more long term in Asia because it's been 3 full years almost, and do you get to the point of no return for a lot of companies and a lot of sectors? do you think?
Okay, I don't think it's a point of no return, but for some companies, yes, it's a point of no return. I think that when APAC slowly started to open up, like Singapore, for example, we don't think that COVID is a big deal anymore. So I think it's just a matter of time where the whole of Asia will think that COVID is not a big deal anymore. So we're just lagging behind. Probably by this year, I expect that all Asia cities will just be completely open up and just be normal.
Yeah, but I have a question about that, CC, or really for anyone, because we're not post-COVID by any means, right? And with China now opening up and a huge percentage of Chinese testing positive, and now they can go travel all over the world, and if not all over APAC, what's going to happen? What do you guys think is going to happen when the Chinese start to come to all the different countries, and a good percentage of them are positive?
I mean, I think in reality, Bruce, sorry, Susie, to jump in, but I think in reality, it's not going to be this huge. You look at flight capacity out from China right now is so limited.
Yeah.
And Chinese airlines are still not adding that back in yet. European airlines, US airlines are not in a hurry to add back in this capacity. There are not going to be hordes of people. In reality, it's going to be perhaps a few more than we're already traveling out right now. I really don't think it's going to have a big impact. I don't think in terms of the virus and
I think
everything
the
else.
airlines are being quite selective in the routes they're adding back. Like I agree with Hannah, like it's not going to be massive. Like the US routes, they're going to be very, very careful, like multiple reasons for that, right? But within the region, I think there are quite a few airlines in China, the China Eastern, like the Xiamen Airlines, China Southern Airlines, they're adding flight route back, for example, from like Shanghai to Sydney. So it seems like Australia seems like a popular place to be like right now. And also because a lot of China during this period, they want to go to a warmer place, right? So like the snow zones are not necessarily that appealing, but they want to go to a beach, like a summer place. And they also like flight adding to like Singapore and Bangkok. So those are kind of the hot zones at the moment, but it's slowly, I think the seat capacity will be increasing, but it's going to be more, from my view, it's going to be more phased approach. So I think for us, it's also going to be like, we're going to be reacting accordingly. So it's not be like a wide reopening. And also like countries also kind of enforcing this testing rules against Chinese outbound travelers, and then some make their firm decisions, some like not quite sure, they add it and they remove it. Some countries like Singapore just saying, okay, we're fine. We're just like, don't bother.
I think that's going to go away. I think it's one of those things where out of the gate people were probably a little bit nervous, but I think it's going to probably, it'll disappear over time. But so let's just stay on the since we're talking about China, let's stay on China for a minute. One of the things that I've been reading a lot about is, what do we think the expectation of the Chinese traveler is going to be when they do start traveling, wherever? So are there going to be changes or shifts in what the Chinese travelers' expectations are, what they're looking to do? Are they going to continue to travel in groups? Or are there going to be more FITs? Hannah, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think this, FIT versus groups, and to take on that one first, certainly before the pandemic, there was this shift, that yes, we had that very first wave of Chinese travelers who were going out and they wanted to go into groups. And then that was slowly phasing into kind of semi-arranged tours to FIT. And I think we're still going to see that transition. I think it's going to be mainly Chinese travelers from perhaps third tier cities who are going to be going in groups, whereas, from cities out like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, it's going to be FITs. They're going to be confident enough to travel like that. So I see that trend certainly continuing. And I think what they're going to be most expecting really is in terms of technology. I mean, Chinese travelers are just so tech savvy. They are mobile first. And I think that this is going to be the biggest issue, I think, that attractions, the tourism stakeholders have to deal with when Chinese travelers start to travel out. Because if you haven't been keeping up with that tech and that whole ecosystem that is unique to China, you might run into issues, I think, later on.
So what does that mean, CC? Tell us what that means for, yeah.
I like to chime in China because I did my homework before I came for this podcast, right? We just announced our collaboration with Fliggy, and internally we just visited, because it's Chinese New Year, we just visited all the China agent across, right? So these are some of the insights I got from these OTAs in China itself. The searches for flights definitely have went through the roof. If you ask China, Fliggy, 800% increase, 1,000% increase. But I think what is interesting is that most of the searches are for APAC countries. So what we expect, or what the OTAs in China currently are expecting, is that the first wave of travelers will be traveling in APAC first, based on the searches that they have found, right? The sentiments are not great at the moment in China, right? The people are not ready to travel. Partly because of the COVID situation in China itself. Even the malls are very empty in China currently. So they are not ready to travel. And after 3 years, they have no passport and things like that. And the flights have not come back yet. The flights are very expensive at the moment. So they think the first wave of people coming out will be probably VFR, people visiting families and friends, and the business travelers. The leisure travelers, they expect probably only in March, April, May onwards, then we can see some leisure travelers coming back, right? And even for leisure travelers coming back, very clear, according to them, it's going to be FITs, right? It's not going to be the massive group. The massive group, they think it will come back from end of the year onwards, somewhat October, November, December. And part of the reason why they are still a little bit bullish about group travel in end of year or even next year, they think that because of recession, China is going to be, the middle part, large segment, is going to be very sensitive to pricing. And group travelers, when they can offer very group rates and group pricing, they might lean towards that way, towards end of the year and next year. So we're definitely going to see some VFR, family travels, corporate travels, followed by FIT leisure travelers before the group travelers will come back end of the year or next year.
On the tech though, CC, which was the sort of the previous question, I feel like the Western companies, and forgive me for having a Western perspective, but that's where I'm from, that's where I live. You know, we've spent years trying to learn how to work with China. Everyone's been trying to work out how to reach the Chinese customers. And then for 3 years, we've had zero. And I feel like everyone's just kind of dropped it, abandoned it. No one was sure if it was ever going to come back again. I'm not sure if it's ever going to come back to where it was. There's other problems with relationships, right? Globalization and that kind of thing. Has the tech just gone, is it just gone in 2 different directions now? So we're going to have a problem bringing it back in, you know, with the Chinese on the super apps, and a lot of Asians in general have super apps. We don't. Have we gone in 2 different directions now that we're not going to come back in together?
No, I think the beauty about tech is that it doesn't care about which country you're from in terms of technology, right? So I think COVID has really expedited the connectivity and in terms of technology. So the pipes are already being laid. I mean, just imagine Fliggy, Globatics, to any of the merchants in Europe, the pipes are laid, right? So the question now is that whether the merchants, whether the suppliers in Europe are ready to turn on this tap, or do they want to even turn on this tap, or when do they want to turn on this tap itself, right? So looking at the response of many countries, even like what Bruce said earlier, so many of the Chinese are testing positive for COVID. My sentiments across the merchants, especially in the Europe side and the America side, probably are not so ready to turn on this tap. Maybe later part of the year, then they will consider starting to do more promotion in China and welcoming the China tourists back. So that is the sentiment.
I have a question for Baidi. So Baidi, You're working for a company that's headquartered in London, office in Singapore, and you've got an app that essentially is what the customer uses to use the product, right? When you think about customers that are coming out of Asia utilizing this app, do you have to manipulate it for that customer, or are you spitting out the same product that using in, let's say, UK or in Europe or US?
Yeah, thank you. Very good question. $1 million question. So I would say, like, just back to what Cici mentioned, the faces. I agree with the faces. Like, it's gonna be that the high income group gonna come out first with the passport. So, but I'm a lot more bullish in this China outbound travel rate, recovery. Even that 1% is a lot of people, considering the population is 1.3 billion. That 1% will make us very happy already. So I guess on the demand side, like how people search, like, has changed drastically. In 2019, like live stream shopping wasn't even a big deal. Like through the whole pandemic, right? How people like search, how people book, and how people just like share have completely changed to like this new media, with specifically like through some of the social media outlets to shop online. Like live streaming is a biggest thing. Like I just read some of the the trip.com report. They work with Thailand Tourism Bureau to promote during the Chinese New Year period to welcome Chinese people to come back to Bangkok to travel. Just through a couple hours, they sold like 40 million yuan versus worth of travel product. So that's how they shop now. So I guess for us, we have like shifted our approach in terms of how to acquire the Chinese customers. It's not going to be through the traditional channels. It's not going through the traditional like SEM route. It's a lot more through the new media. But on the product side, yes, you're right. We will have to shift slightly, but not like, in a major way. Because even in 2019, you know this well, Lori, without any customization of our existing product, which is basically everyone will have the same product, right? We believe the top attractions in New York City works for the Germans, will work for the Chinese, and our result is showing that's the case. So we haven't really done any sort of customization, and our sales was massive already without much of a work for China. For this year, as much as we want to do customization, I think a lot of people mentioned on the show, the attractions are not quite ready. Like we went to Bangkok late last year, and we talked to the biggest tour operator for the Chinese groups. He actually changed to a different business. He was selling some like local specialties. He's not even like in travel anymore. So like their readiness, I think is yet to be tested. But we're speaking about China, so they could just come back overnight. That's our experience so far.
Yeah.
Tomorrow
We have a
morning,
little ways to go.
I want to ask about the customer acquisition, and you mentioned the streaming shopping, which is a little bit of a hard concept to understand versus video shopping, or what's happening, what Amazon just launched, for example, and what's not really happening, for example, on TripAdvisor, Viator, or other channels. So could you explain what you see happening in APAC with what you called streaming shopping?
Bruce, come on, Bruce.
Bruce, this. Essentially, it's a TV shopping, but it's on the internet.
I know this, but I want to be clearer. I mean, are you talking about shopping through TikTok? Are you talking about shopping through other social media that actually from a TikTok, you can have a call to action and book, which that's what you're talking about.
Correct.
What are the channels that you're talking about?
Correct. So is the social media, platforms now also offering the e-commerce functionality. So companies or even like travel agencies could, get on one of these platforms. Could be TikTok, Douyin in Chinese, could be Red, the little red book, which is combination of I guess Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And it could be, one of those super apps. They all enable this live streaming feature within app or within platform. So we as a merchant or as an operator could just, open a room, it's called live streaming room, and, have a host and selected your products, get those, some, I guess, special discounts, available for all the, I guess, live streaming watchers, just exclusive for the couple hours. And then, to really talk about, the destination, the product, the experience, and they usually invite some of the, I guess, the travel influencers or KOL, we call it in this region, and really have very interactive, immersive experience. So people have that is an impulsive shopping kind of experience. So people think about people being stuck inside China for 3 years. They just dream about it. They see all the amazing sites in Rome and Paris, and they see, okay, 40% off, good deal, I'll buy it. So that's how they run it.
I can't go, but I'll buy it.
Yeah, I'll buy it.
Sounds like QVC TV to me at this point.
It's the TV shopping, but in this, I guess, the new age of TV shopping.
Right.
Hopefully in future will be the new age of Web 3.0.
Remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I remember hearing about the I don't know, was it the CEO of Trip.com or that got on to, I don't know what platform it was.
Yeah,
but he
it's a
started doing
Weibo.
live
Yeah, it's a
streaming,
Chinese Twitter.
and I can't remember how much he sold, but apparently it was some incredibly massive amount of that basically people are just like, yeah. So why are we not doing that in the West?
But what percentage of
what is it that
travel
we
sales is
are
that?
missing here?
Is this generating?
Tell me.
It was billions of yuan being generated from
travel.
a couple hours live streaming shopping.
In travel.
In travel, yeah, it's like flights, hotel rooms, as well as in destination experiences. That was the biggest one they had with James, as well as some other hosts, and then they have city-specific live streaming chapters where they actually work with the city governments or local tourism board to host live stream shopping. It's very well received. And a lot of people actually see it as a part of kind of a travel show in a way. Even if I don't buy, I want to be part of it as this is a background playing, just like TV, right? I get to see the sites because they actually have the videos, they actually have, like a lot of interesting, like even games to play within the live streaming section,
Gamification.
Everything.
Is it coming here? You've all lived in the West. I think Cece, you've lived in the West. I know you lived in San Francisco, Baidi, and Hannah, obviously you're from somewhere similar to me. But is this coming here?
Wow, it's very hard to say. I mean, consumer behavior is something, is art, not a science. Sometimes some things just pick up, some things just don't pick up, right? So I mean, it is not about technology whether it can do it or not, but it's really about consumer behavior. I like to use one example, right? Just imagine Taylor Swift, their recent concert and Ticketmaster collapsed because of Taylor Swift concert, right? But if Disneyland ever worked with Taylor Swift to say, okay, let's go live streaming Taylor Swift on Facebook, and you get a 50% on Disney, you could generate millions of credits. It's just that no one is doing it, right? But just imagine if Taylor Swift says, come, let's go to Disneyland together.
You're selling this idea to Disney now.
It's like a QVC shopping network, but I think the thing is that there's no purchase path right now from from the apps that we're using here, right? That's part of the problem, is that there isn't that sort of logical pathway to buy. But I don't see any reason why we couldn't. And I honestly believe that Hopper will probably be doing it before.
Because we don't have super apps, right? We don't have payment. All right, payments are kind of connected now,
but we do actually, when you think about it, Bruce. Yeah, what's your name again? We do though. I was just thinking about that. Like, what about Instagram? You're on Instagram and then there's a buy now button. I mean, what's the difference really? You know?
Well,
What's the
the
difference?
Instagram shopping, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going very well.
Yeah.
Well,
For
someone's got to
Instagram.
figure it out.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I definitely need a super app or something over here that allows for live streaming, because I really think that it would be amazing to jump on that bandwagon. We actually are going to have a show on. We're hoping to have somebody from Hopper jump on, because really they are really kind of at the cutting edge in the West in regards to things like gamification. You mentioned that, Baidi, and loyalty programs. And by the way, before we go on, is there anybody in APAC that you think is doing loyalty really well? Because loyalty is something that we're talking about all the time, right? How do you keep your customers and not have to spend a bunch of money on search? Is there somebody in APAC that you think is really doing a great job at that? Some travel company, especially in the experiences space.
Wow. Obviously, we are struggling to think of somebody who
Yeah,
does very well.
yeah, I think that says a lot, right? By the fact that we can't
Okay,
think of
dead
anything.
silence, dead
No, I
silence.
think it's more of the price-led loyalty instead of actual brand-led loyalty I'm seeing here. I mean, if there's any loyalty, I think maybe Singapore Airlines. I feel like
I was about to say that. That's like
Yeah,
the
it would
only one
be-
that I can think of. Maybe airlines.
I would
Right.
say that if it talks about loyalty program, probably in Asia, the best player in loyalty program, not 100% in travel, Rakuten, Japan. Japan is huge into loyalty programs, and if you look at people who shop in Rakuten and Rakuten Travel, I think a very significant, more than 50% of Rakuten Travel is because of people claiming their loyalty program from Rakuten marketplace and things like that. So, but the rest of Asia, we are very price sensitive generally. So loyalty program, they will even compare. There are even sites to compare the miles. Is it really worth to accumulate the miles compared to you buying after a whole period of time? So very price sensitive when it comes to that.
Isn't that the whole point? That you know, we think of loyalty over here as being the point system, but I look at Asia as having cracked the loyalty through
But they're not
gamification. Through the super
loyal to
app.
a
That is,
particular brand. They're loyal to just whoever has the cheapest rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like
Okay.
for example, for credit cards, you know, here in Malaysia, each restaurant has a tie-up with a different credit card, and so you will go in and be like, oh, okay, I really want to visit that restaurant. Oh, they have a 10% discount for my Maybank card. Okay, I'll use my Maybank card. So it is really they join them all and maximize them all, but it's not necessarily that they are, like Baidi and CC were saying, like, very loyal. Probably Singapore Airlines is an exception, right? I think people are very
What
passionate
about
about Singapore
AirAsia?
Airlines.
AirAsia?
No.
Is that no?
I don't think so. I think people it's like a necessary thing that you have to use, I think, and as CC and Buddy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think people are like, yes, I get a fly on AirAsia. It's more like, oh, AirAsia have the cheapest rate and they have the highest flight frequency for this place I want to go, so I'll use them.
Yeah.
And they're trying to expand, yes, with their super app, and they have AirAsia Rides, so like their equivalent of Uber. They have AirAsia Eats, so Uber Eats, and all of these different verticals, and they're trying to expand. But you know, a lot of feedback I get from other people is that the UI UX is not great, and that they don't really enjoy that whole experience.
So I feel like we need an answer from everyone, including Laurie and Bruce. Is the West going to go towards the super app with the zero loyalty, but the loyalty to the app, or is Asia actually behind, and you guys are going to come more like to the individual brands and abandon the super
You know,
app?
the whole super app thing to me, you know,
Yes or no, Bruce?
it's a no. And the reason is
What does no mean again? Which one was that?
because the whole super app thing, to me, my understanding, and you guys in Asia, help me if I'm wrong, WeChat is the super app, and there's others that are chasing it. And the reason is because it's your communication. So people communicate using WeChat. It's your payment. So they pay through WeChat and then they buy through WeChat. So it is a super app where you can do everything. I don't know of another one. There's Grab that's very, very popular throughout APAC, and you guys can talk more about what Grab does. I think, we look at Hopper as a possibility, but Hopper is not a super app. Hopper's trying to be a super app for travel, period, end of story. So the answer is no to your question, Chris.
What are you answering no to? So
that there's not going to be a super
hold on.
app in the Western, at least in the US and let's say the West, anytime in the near future, and to find like a WeChat style super app.
Okay.
I would also, I agree with Bruce. I don't think super app it's going to really propagate the world, and even in Asia itself, other than with the exception of China where super app is really strong, the rest of Asia we don't see really very successful super app, including Grab or including AirAsia attempt to be a super app. I think the consumer still likes to buy in different places, right? And to be a super app, you really must be very super, like a WeChat, right? The only person who can be a super app in the West, in my humble opinion, is Google. If Google one day wants to be a super app, maybe Google has a chance, right? Because all your searches are there. If Google combined with Apple payment, everything, your payment, your searches, then maybe Google has a chance to be a super app, right? But really, it's not easy to find companies who can reach the level to say, I want to be a super app and I can achieve it. So I think it's going to be not geographical, but it's going to be company specific. Maybe ChatGPT in the future. Who knows?
No.
Yeah, I would say no. I would say no. I think
We
people
got a
use
no,
the
a
apps
no,
they
a no.
use.
Baidi,
Hannah
Hannah?
didn't weigh in yet.
I agree with Bruce and CC as well. In my opinion, WeChat is the only super app. Every other so-called super app are not necessarily the true super app. But I think it's also going back to the history of how like WeChat started. And people tend to forget before WeChat, there was the QQ, the Tencent. That was the first instant messenger I've used before I even went to college. That was the first time I touched internet, like when we still use the modem. So it took them like over 10 years to even get to the WeChat point. So they have such a big customer base who transition from QQ, Tencent to WeChat. But now this newer company had that kind of history and the consumer base. So I think it's very hard to replicate what like WeChat is doing. Maybe Google, but Google has maybe other ambitions, and that's not their main mission in the business, right? It's about organizing information, not about like becoming a super app. Who knows? But
you never know.
Never know.
Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with everybody else. I think I just don't see a super app happening in the West. Like Baidi and CC said, it's kind of a perfect storm that could create WeChat in China. Even Southeast Asia is really trying. They can't crack it. They haven't got it there. And ultimately, I guess for the West, it also comes down to that concern. One company having too much control over all of your privacy, over all of your data. And I think that's also a big concern, right? So yes, maybe it makes your life easy, but how much of your life do you want to give away to one app? I think that's, a bit of a question mark for Western audiences.
Even the China government is concerned, right? So you could see China government last year trying to curtail all the big tech to say that you better watch what you're doing. Yeah.
Somebody's got to call Hopper and tell them they got this all wrong. I've got a feeling Hopper are going to get it right because they're thinking about it. I don't think it's going to happen either, but I think because they're thinking about it and they're thinking about how different markets work and how loyalty through the app rather than, I think they'll crack something. But
it's a travel app.
6, yeah.
Hopper's a travel super app, maybe in the future, not a super app.
Right,
They're
not
going
a
to ever
super app.
have communication built in, right? Like unless they go and buy WhatsApp from Facebook.
And Google's not going to, well, Gmail obviously, but Google's gone away from
Google has no messaging.
No, they've gone away from travel booking, right? They've backed away now from hotels, flights, or experiences. So Google's gone the other direction, I'd argue.
All right, so time for another question or two. So I have a question, and I recognize that like the Chinese traveler is definitely going to stay close to home for a little while now. Maybe in Q3, Q4, we'll start to see more outbound from China as, you know, everything settles down, visas are taken care of, passports, air capacity picks up. And my own impression is that they'll probably go to Europe before they'll go to the US, but I don't know if that's right or not. One of the questions I have though is if I'm an operator and I'm thinking about, you know, down the road and oh shoot, here they come, I forgot about this traveler. What is the sort of one thing that I should be thinking about doing in order to make sure I'm capturing this business?
Payment
Hannah.
gateways, I think. Yeah.
Payment.
Payment is
Payment.
going to be the big thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Fully
Okay, so
agree.
make sure you got Alipay, WeChat Pay.
Okay, maybe I just share a little bit about payment. We also recently been really investing a lot in payment itself because our merchant needs it, right? Our merchant needs it. The thing about in APAC, what is happening in Asia, with the exception of maybe Singapore itself, we are following what is happening in China. We are bypassing the credit card age, right? If you look at a credit card penetration in Asia itself, in Indonesia, we are talking about single digit. In Philippines, we are talking about single digit. If we look at credit card penetration in Malaysia, probably 20% itself, right? But everybody is online. So how are they going online? How did the next generation of APAC went online? Digital wallets. And digital wallet is so predominant in the whole APAC, especially during COVID time. I was shocked myself going to India to be able to pay with Google Pay, going to Malaysia, pay with Touch and Go. So I foresee in the next 10, 15 years, if we want to tap on the APAC customers, you have to accept more than credit cards on your website, or else the younger generation can't pay. Simply, they just can't pay on your website.
That's a really good piece of advice. What's another one? Baidi.
Well, I think I will go back to the discovery phase. I mean, for whether it's Chinese customers or just in general Asian customers, the biggest I guess traveling overseas are number one, what to do, like how to discover things to do, and number two is how to book. Where do I like? Because people don't want, especially some of the Northern Asian countries, people want to have this level of certainty. They don't want to be there and figure out what to do. So they have to plan out. So how to like book those experiences in advance is very important. They do not want to disappoint. They have very, you know, they haven't been traveled for 3 years. They need to have a very solid holiday. So how to book and then how to get there, you know, like, I think there's three things. Maybe obviously the how to book is the payment and also what platform they will be booking at. But I think the discovery phase is very, very important as well. You know, things have changed so much, right? What used to, you know, be the hot thing to do might not be the one anymore. Again, I think I always still go back to the new media and so how to really like surface your or kind of increase the exposure of your experiences, your services throughout all these new social media outlets, I think will be very important.
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
If I could just add one more, I think it's for them themselves, the tour operators and tourism stakeholders, to re-educate themselves on who the Chinese travelers are and to kind of discard all of those stereotypes and what they thought they knew about Chinese travelers. You know, that preconception Chinese travelers are just going to come in this big tour group and they only want to shop and they only want to go see the main sites. And I think, you know, the Chinese market is they're all the same. And that's absolutely really not true, right? It's a huge population. There are different niches within that, different levels of sophistication. And I think, you know, especially when you're thinking about China, you need to really be thinking a lot more nuanced than that.
And one last thing that
Hannah, that's I was just going to jump in really quickly. It's a really good point. You know, during the 3 years, right, in China, also the domestic travel landscape have changed quite a bit. There are a lot of new categories being invented. I don't know if you guys watch domestic China that much. There's a lot of camping. So camping is a new category being like brought up. Self-driving trips. a lot of this kind of hiking and nature discovery is a very big category now. Like if during those COVID years in the major holidays, you will see the glamping or campsites being set up in all the major like parks. They wasn't a thing. Like it's not like the US. So now I think it's getting like to the point of people not just going to a place to shop and eat instant
I think
noodles
it sounds a lot
you know?
like what we've seen here in the West, quite honestly, in regards to people being outside nature, camping, glamping, all of that. So
but there wasn't
it's
like that
interesting.
category. There wasn't that category in China at all.
That's-
That was a new category being created.
That's very cool. So we're out of time, unfortunately, but I knew this was going to be one of those sessions we could just go on for a long time, and so we're going to have you back when.
Can I ask Baidi one more question, Laurie?
Well, let me see. Yeah, okay.
Baidi knows I love to ask a Chinese Communist Party question. So when they announced that there's 60,000 COVID deaths last month, is that under exaggerated to keep people moving? Is it over exaggerated to keep people in place? Or is it completely reverse engineered to make the exact right balance of keeping things moving?
I have no comment.
I was going to say, Baidi, wow, if you
that's a trap.
if you were going to comment, would it be A, B, or C?
Don't get me in trouble.
I know that Christian is not interested in your well-being, right? It's just, he's looking for viewers.
He doesn't know who's watching.
You're gonna like add the title as clickbait, right?
Well, thank you all for joining us. This has been really fun, and I think we learned a lot. I know I learned a lot, and thanks for joining us, and have a great day. We'll have a good evening. See you all soon, hopefully.
Thanks,
everyone. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.